My name is Daniel Thompson, and this is a true story of wife cheating that happened to me. That late afternoon, the sunlight dappled onto my desk through a gap in the curtains. I sat on a chair in my study, clutching in my hand a pile of papers that I had inadvertently found in Lauren's handbag. The ambiguous text messages and emails on the documents stung my eyes and my heart like needles. I felt as if I had been hit hard and my whole being fell into a trance. Lauren, my wife, was having an inappropriate relationship with her boss, Greg. The intimate words, the outright betrayal, overwhelmed me with this harsh reality. I closed my eyes and tried to calm myself, but those warm memories intertwined with the betrayal in front of me made my heart ache. I remembered the good times we used to spend together, the days of laughter and snuggling as if they were just yesterday. But now, it's all so far away. I took a deep breath and tried to calm myself down. I knew that being angry and impulsive in the face of this situation would only put me in a more passive position. I needed to get to the bottom of this. I needed to find Lauren and Greg and confront them face to face about why they were doing this to me. Just then, the sound of a key unlocking the door came from outside. I hurriedly hid my papers and stepped out of the study. I saw Lauren push her way in with the usual smile on her face. But in my eyes, that smile stung my heart like a knife. "You're back." I tried to sound as calm as possible. "How was work today?" "Not too bad," she said easily. "Had some things to take care of at the office, so I'm back late. How about you? How was your day?" I looked into her eyes, trying to find a hint of guilt or unease in them. But her eyes were so open, as if nothing had happened. This made me feel even more heartbroken and desperate. At dinner, we sat at the table as usual, but the atmosphere was unusually heavy. I ate in silence, my heart filled with doubt and anger, and she seemed to sense something, glancing at me from time to time with a flicker of uneasiness in her eyes. "We need to talk to each other," I said as I put down my chopsticks and looked her straight in the eye. She flinched slightly. "Talk about what?" "I found out about what's going on between you and Greg," I said bluntly, "and I want an explanation." Her face instantly turned pale. Why?" I interrupted. "We used to love each other so much. Why are you doing this to me?" She grimaced as she spoke. "I'm sorry, Daniel. I know this is a shock to you, but something did happen between me and Greg that shouldn't have." I felt my heart bleed. "So what do you plan to do? Divorce?" I spit out the words with difficulty. She nodded her head in an unusually calm manner, as if she had been ready for this for a long time. "Yes, Daniel, I think we should get a divorce." Her voice was firm. I felt a wave of dizziness and powerlessness come over me, but managed to brace myself and stand up. "Well, since you've already made your decision a long time ago, let's get a divorce." After saying these words, I turned around and left the restaurant, locking myself into the study. At that moment, I felt unprecedented heartache and despair, as if the whole world had abandoned me, and my heart was filled with incomparable hatred at this moment. Ever since the day I found out Lauren had filed for divorce, my life has been in turmoil and darkness. I had thought our marriage was indestructible, but I didn't realize it was full of holes long ago. And to add to my heartache, they had even teamed up to threaten me, trying to make me suffer through it all in silence. That night, when Lauren came home from work, there was an unusual amount of tension between us. She sat on the couch and looked at me with an expressionless face, while I had mixed feelings inside. I knew that what was coming would come. "Daniel, we still need to talk." Lauren finally broke the silence. I looked at her coldly. "What else is there to talk about? Haven't you already decided to get a divorce?" She took a deep breath. "It happened and I can't undo it, but I think we can try to minimize the damage." "Minimize?" I laughed bitterly. "Do you think that's even possible?" Just then, Greg suddenly appeared at our door. He walked in and sat down next to Lauren in a dignified manner. I looked at them, anger burning in my heart. "Daniel, I know you're angry," Greg spoke up, "but I think you should realize that there are no permanent enemies in this world. We can be friends, even partners, if you want." I listened to him with a sneer in my heart. What do they take me for? A pawn to be manipulated at will? What the hell do you guys want? I asked coldly. "It's simple," Greg smiled. "As long as you don't sue us and expose this, We can guarantee that your interests won't be jeopardized in any way. Moreover, your position in the company will be more secure." I looked at them with despair in my heart. They were actually trying to threaten me in this way to get me to give up pursuing them. But how could I just give in like that? What if I don't say yes? I asked through clenched teeth. Greg's face immediately turned grim. "If you don't agree, then we will have to take some necessary measures. You should know that we have the ability to make you lose everything you have now." A wave of fear ran through me as I listened to his words. But I knew I couldn't just give in. I looked at them and took a deep breath. "You will regret this." With those words, I turned and left the house. I knew that the fight had just begun and that I had to fight for my future and Emily's. Walking the streets at night, I felt more alone and desperate than ever. I used to think I had a happy family and a wife who loved me, but now it seems like it was all an illusion. Lauren and Greg's betrayal has made me so skeptical of the world that I don't know what else I can believe in. At the same time, I began to feel fearful. Greg's threats made me realize that I could lose everything I had now. My job, my house, even Emily. That I couldn't imagine my life when I had nothing. The despair and helplessness was suffocating. However, in desperation, I also began to feel extreme anger and defiance. I was not willing to be at their mercy like this. I was going to fight for a fair future for myself and Emily, and I was not going to let these betrayers of my marriage get away with it. I knew that the fight was going to be very hard, but I had to keep going. Since being threatened by Lauren and Greg, I have been filled with anger and despair. Those days, I stayed up all night, thinking over and over again about how to respond to this betrayal. I couldn't just suffer in silence. I wanted to make them pay for what they had done, so I began to plan my revenge. To retaliate, you first need to have evidence. I decided to start by collecting their conversations, which would not only give me an idea of their plans, but also serve as evidence for possible future legal proceedings. So I purchased a very discreet micro-recording device. The device is small and compact and can easily be hidden in the lining of Lauren's handbag. I chose a day when she was out of the house and carefully placed the recording device in her bag when she wasn't looking. I knew that she met with Greg on a daily basis and that the bag was something she often carried with her when she was out and about. After placing the recording equipment, I began the long wait. Each day, I anxiously awaited for the equipment to record the conversation between them. Every time Lauren left the house, I would say a silent prayer that something would come out of it this time. A few days later, I finally got my chance. Lauren and Greg were on a date at a cafe while I waited nervously at home. When Lauren came home, I quickly took the recording device out of her bag when she wasn't looking. I couldn't wait to play back the recording and hear the conversation between them. Greg was talking about how to further control me, while Lauren chimed in. I heard their jeers and their dismissive tone toward me. Anger burned in me, but I knew that now was not the time. I needed more evidence, and more than that, I needed a perfect plan to make them pay. So I continued to be patient and continued to collect evidence. Every time I heard their conversations, it strengthened my resolve to take revenge. I began to formulate a detailed plan, considering every possible scenario. I want them to know that there is a price to pay for betraying me. During that time, I became incredibly calm and rational. I knew that the only way to make a perfect plan was to keep a clear head. Every day I thought about how I would carry out my revenge and how I would make Lauren and Greg pay for their betrayal. At the same time, I began to pay more attention to Emily, and I knew that this fight was not just about my feud with Lauren and Greg, but also about my responsibility as a father. I want to provide a stable living environment for Emily so that she can stay away from this dispute. In the process of planning my revenge, I realized that this fight could have a profound effect on me. I began to reflect on my behavior, pondering whether it was really worth it. But every time I thought about their betrayal and threats, I renewed my resolve. I'm going to show them that I'm not to be messed with. Finally, after gathering enough evidence, I started working on my revenge plan. I decided to use an extreme way to make them pay for what they had done. Although my heart was full of contradictions and struggles, I knew that this was the only choice I could make. Before acting, I played back those recordings again. Listening to their conversations, the anger in my heart was once again ignited. I knew clearly that there was no turning back once this retaliation had begun. but I was ready to fight for my dignity and rights regardless of the outcome. From the moment I decided to plot my revenge, I knew I was on a path of no return. It was a time of conflict and struggle, but every time I thought about Lauren and Greg's betrayal, I strengthened my resolve. Finally, I waited for an opportunity. That day, Lauren told me she was going to a party one night and Greg would be there. I was overjoyed and knew this was the perfect time to exact my revenge. After Lauren left the house, I acted quickly. I went into the kitchen and found Lauren's usual cream-making equipment. I knew she had a keen interest in cooking, and this particular cream-making equipment was a recent purchase that she used to make all sorts of delicious creamy treats. I stood in front of the device and took a deep breath, trying to calm my excitement. Then, I pulled a small bottle from my pocket containing the deadly toxin I had prepared in advance. This toxin, which I have carefully selected, is colorless, odorless, and will not be noticed for a short period of time. However, it will slowly accumulate in the body and eventually lead to death. I know that such behavior is extremely dangerous and illegal, but I couldn't care less anymore. I carefully opened the lid of the cream-making device and poured the toxin into the cream ingredients in the device. Then, I recovered the lid and made sure everything was back in place. Next, there was the waiting. Waiting for Lauren and Greg to taste that poisonous cream. Waiting for the toxins to slowly build up in their bodies. Waiting for them to finally die. I don't know how I made it through that night, my heart hanging in the air, both nervous and scared. But when I received word that Lauren and Greg had suddenly fallen ill at the party and were rushed to the hospital, I knew my plan had worked. At that moment, I did not feel the joy of victory, but an indescribable heaviness. I looked out the window at the dark night sky, my heart mixed feelings. I knew that I had embarked on a road from which there was no turning back. In the days that followed, I followed the news from the hospital closely. I heard that Lauren and Greg's condition had deteriorated dramatically and that the doctors were at their wits' end. I felt both relief and deep guilt in my heart. Finally, early one morning, I received a call from the hospital. Lauren and Greg had passed away. I hung up the phone and sat on the couch, an unnameable wave of emotions welling up in me. Retaliation was successful, but I didn't feel happy. Instead, I felt a deep emptiness and loss. I looked out the window at the sunshine, but my heart was filled with darkness. I know that my behavior is unforgivable. I had not only taken away 2 lives, but I had also destroyed my own future. But I couldn't control the anger and despair I felt inside. I couldn't bear their betrayal and threats. After Lauren and Greg's deaths, I thought I would feel relief, but what followed was a deep emptiness and endless fear. The police quickly became involved in the investigation and I became a key suspect. After all, I was one of the people closest to them during their lives, and their deaths were inextricably linked to the threats I'd made earlier. During that time, it was as if my life was plunged into darkness. I was being questioned by the police every day as they tried to pry any possible clue out of me. I knew that if I couldn't prove my innocence, my life would be ruined. Fortunately, I had prepared myself before. Prior to planning my retaliation, I purchased a covert recording device and cleverly placed it in Lauren's bag. I had originally just wanted to collect some of her conversations with Greg as evidence, just in case. Little did I know that these recordings would now be my saving grace. The recordings clearly document Lauren and Greg's threats against me and their infidelities and conspiracies against me. Each conversation was like a sharp knife stabbing into my heart, but now, these recordings are my best defense. My attorney is a savvy and capable man who understands the importance of these recordings. He carefully organized the recordings and skillfully incorporated them into my defense strategy. In court, he defended me with great passion, using the recordings as hard evidence that I had acted in self-defense. During the trial, I was so nervous that I was sweating. I could feel my heart beating faster whenever the prosecutor asked pointed questions. But my attorney always skillfully defused the crisis by using those recordings to refute the prosecutor's accusations. Eventually, after a long trial, the judge announced my acquittal. At that moment, it was as if I had broken free from hell and returned to earth. I took a deep breath and felt an unprecedented ease and freedom. Although I know that my behavior is not honorable and can even be described as despicable, I also understand that I was forced to take this path. Now, I just want to cherish this opportunity to be reborn and create a new future for myself and Emily. The moment I left the courtroom, I felt the strange stares of the people around me. I knew they were full of contempt and resentment towards me, but I had no time to care about that anymore. I just wanted to leave this suffocating place as soon as possible and start my new life. I returned home and looked at Emily's sleeping face with guilt and remorse. I knew that my behavior had caused her irreparable harm, but I also knew that I couldn't keep dwelling on the past. I need to pick myself up and provide her with a stable and happy home environment. After that nightmare-like self-defense, I took a deep breath as if I could expel all that heavy past from my body. Even though I was legally cleared for the time being, the torment of my mind was far from over. Whenever it was late at night, the shadows of Lauren and Greg would surface before my eyes, preventing me from sleeping peacefully. But no matter what, I had to move on for Emily's sake. Greg's law firm surprised me with an olive branch of settlement after the fiasco. I suspect that they probably also recognized that no one was really winning in this fiasco. After all, their company had lost 2 key people, and it was certainly a huge blow to their business. They desperately need to stabilize internally to avoid further losses. When I stepped into the spacious conference room, facing the rows and rows of company executives with serious faces, my heart was unusually calm. I knew that this negotiation was not only about my future, but also about Emily's future. Negotiations began, and the representative of the other side spoke first, his tone revealing a hint of sincerity. "Mr. Daniel, we are deeply sorry for what happened. We understand that this tragedy has brought irreparable harm to you and your family. As a company, we are willing to take some responsibility for this and provide corresponding financial compensation." I nodded silently and didn't say anything. At this point in time, any words seemed so pale and powerless. My heart was filled with complex emotions: anger, sadness, disappointment. But more than anything else, I was worried about Emily's future. The negotiations that followed went relatively smoothly. We both had several negotiations and discussions about the amount of compensation. I firmly laid out for them the future security that Emily and I needed and the far-reaching impact that this tragedy has had on us. In the end, we reached a mutually acceptable amount of compensation. This money, for me, is not only financial compensation, but also the startup capital for a new life for Emily and me. It meant that we could start a brand new life away from this city, full of painful memories. The moment I received the settlement, I felt a sense of relief that I had never felt before. The money didn't just mean financial freedom. It was the beginning of a new life for Emily and me. We could pursue dreams that were once out of our reach because of all the constraints. The night after the negotiations, I sat alone on the balcony of my new home and gazed at the stars. I knew deep down that I couldn't change my past, but I also realized that I couldn't let the shadows of the past bind me to move forward. For Emily's sake, and for our own, we must face the future with courage. So, I started working on planning our new life. After receiving that settlement, I was finally able to start a new life for myself and Emily. I used that money to buy a cozy little house in a quiet neighborhood and moved in with Emily. I thought that this would be our new beginning, a place where we could live in peace. On moving day, Emily ran around excitedly, exploring every corner of her new home. I looked at her happy face and my heart was filled with hope. Maybe this new home can really bring us a new beginning. I try to make my home as cozy and comfortable as possible, hoping Emily will feel at home here. I prepared a pink bedroom for her with posters of her favorite cartoon characters on the wall and her favorite quilt on the bed. I think such an environment should make her feel at ease and happy. On our first night in our new home, we sat together on the couch in the living room, watching TV and enjoying this new family time. Emily leaned close to me, and I could feel her dependence and trust. I knew that I had to work harder for her and for our future. Over the next few days, I started trying to be a better father. I did homework with Emily, took her for walks in the park, and watched movies with her. Our relationship was getting a little bit closer, and I could feel her reliance and trust in me growing. At the same time, I started to pay attention to my own life and health. I knew that I could only take better care of Emily if I was in good health, and I started to go to the gym regularly, keep a good routine, and try to look as refreshed and young as possible. I also started trying to reach out to people in my community and build good relationships with them. I participated in volunteer activities in the community to help those in need. I found that this life made me feel fulfilled and meaningful. Although the beginning of our new life has been a little tough, I know we are getting used to this new environment, and Emily is settling into her new school and life. She is making new friends and enjoying this new phase of her life. Watching Emily grow happily in her new life fills my heart with gratitude and fulfillment. I know that this new life is the result of our joint efforts and our hope and motivation for the future. However, the new life was not all smooth sailing. Sometimes I would wake up late at night with nightmares of the past, those memories of Lauren and Greg coming back like a tidal wave that took my breath away. But every now and then, I remember Emily's smile, and that's what keeps me going. I have to be strong for Emily. I have to set a good example for her and show her that no matter what difficulties we can face them with courage and overcome them. As time went by, we gradually integrated into our new neighborhood. Our neighbors were friendly and invited us to participate in community events, and Emily found her place in her new school, where she got better grades and made several close friends. And I, too, found my niche in this new environment. I became involved in some volunteer work in the community, helping those in need. It was late at night, and I was sitting alone in the study of my new home, the moonlight from the window spilling onto the desk and illuminating the photo in my hand. It was a picture of Emily when she was a little girl. She smiled so brightly, so carefree. Looking at her smile, the guilt and self-blame in my heart came like a tidal wave. Yes, I succeeded in getting back at those who betrayed me. But at what cost to me? I lost the wife I once loved, and although I know she no longer loves me, I still feel heartache. More importantly, I caused irreparable damage to my daughter Emily. I often ask myself, am I doing the right thing? I've sacrificed too much for revenge. Am I really worth it? Whenever I see Emily's sleeping face, I feel a pang of heartache. She's still a child. She should have had a happy childhood, but because of my retaliatory action, her life was completely changed. I began to reflect on my actions, and I realized that my retaliatory actions were not the best way to solve the problem. Although I received compensation and started a new life, the guilt and remorse I felt deep inside could not be removed. I began to think, if I had chosen to forgive and communicate instead of retaliating, would the outcome have been different? But there is no medicine for regret in this world. I cannot change the past. I can only face the reality. Now, every day, I try to make up for the damage I did to Emily, and I do my best to make her feel the love of a father and the warmth of a family. However, I know very well that the wounds caused by my faults cannot be healed so easily. Whenever I see her playing alone, an indescribable sadness wells up in my heart. I began to seek psychological redemption, hoping to find a way to make amends for my transgressions. I consulted a psychiatrist and attended some counseling sessions in an attempt to find inner peace. At the same time, I began to participate in community service to help those who were going through similar hardships. I hoped that through my efforts, I could make some contribution to society and atone for my faults. In this process, I gradually realized that revenge does not solve the problem, but only makes the hurt deeper. True liberation and inner peace can only be realized through tolerance and understanding. I know that my moral dilemma isn't going to be easy to resolve. I need time to heal my wounds, to reestablish my relationship with Emily, and to make up for my past mistakes. It's a long and difficult process, but one I'm willing to bravely face and take on for the sake of my daughter and for the sake of my own heart. I still think of Lauren and Greg every late night. Their shadows linger in my mind, but I have learned to make peace with them. I no longer resent them or myself. I know that everyone should be held accountable for their actions, and I am paying the price for my past transgressions. Since that incident, I knew deep down that my life could not go back to the way it was before. Whenever I see Emily's innocent eyes, the guilt in my heart comes like a tidal wave. I knew that the vengeful behavior I had engaged in was not only a punishment for Lauren and Greg, but also for myself and Emily. Emily knew nothing about that change of heart, which was the only thing I was thankful for. All she knows is that her mom left us suddenly, and that her dad became a harder worker to provide a better life for her. I do my best to stay strong in front of her, but I know that the scars deep inside me will never heal. Every day, I think about how to be a better father and how to make up for my past mistakes. I began to pay more attention to Emily's growth and education, hoping that she could become a loving, responsible, and independent thinker. I took her to various activities to expose her to different people and things and broaden her horizons. I have also started to learn how to communicate with her and listen to her ideas and opinions so that she can feel the warmth and democracy of the family. However, no matter what I did, I could not change the fact that I had made a serious mistake. Whenever I think back on my retaliatory behavior, I feel deep remorse and regret. I know that extreme approach was not the best way to solve the problem, and the damage I caused Emily is irreparable. I began to reflect on my behavior and try to find a better way to face life's challenges. I realized that only through tolerance and understanding could I truly solve my problems. I decided to let go of hatred and revenge and to face everything in life with love and tolerance. At the same time, I have begun to take an active role in community service to help those in need. I hope to make up for my past mistakes through my actions, and I also hope to set a good example for Emily. I want her to know that no matter what happens, we should keep a kind and forgiving heart and use love to dissolve hatred and conflicts. In the process, I also gradually learned how to face my past. Instead of running away and denying my mistakes, I am brave enough to admit them and take the consequences. I know that this is not only responsible for myself, but also for Emily. Over time, I grew out of my moral dilemma and found inner peace. I began to re-examine my life and values and redefine the meaning of happiness and success. I realized that true happiness does not come from money or status, but from inner satisfaction and love of life. However, I am aware that I cannot change my past, but I can change my future. I will continue to strive to be a better father and citizen and create a better life for myself and Emily. At the same time, I will always be vigilant to keep myself from falling into another moral dilemma. I know that my behavior has had a profound effect on Emily. She may ask questions about her mom, and I may make up some lies to hide the truth, but I would prefer to be able to tell her everything as she matures. I hope she understands my pain and struggle, and I hope she learns to appreciate life and love from it. Whenever I see Emily growing up healthy and happy, I feel immense relief and satisfaction. I know that this is the result of all my efforts and costs. I also know that no matter what challenges and difficulties I will face in the future, I will face them bravely and bear the consequences, because I have found inner peace and courage, as well as the meaning and value of life. Since that incident, I have struggled to find an inner peace. I know that the mistakes I made cannot be erased by time, but I also understand that only I can find my way out of the shadows. Emily, my daughter, is the most important person in my life and the driving force behind my quest for redemption. I was aware of the profound effect my behavior was having on her, and even though she didn't fully understand what was happening, she could feel the change in me. I became more silent, more thoughtful, and she, in turn, looked at me with her innocent eyes as if to ask, "Daddy, what's wrong with you?" I couldn't explain it to her. I could only try to make amends, to give her more love and companionship. I became active in community service, helping those who were going through similar struggles. I thought that perhaps by helping others, I could find a way to redeem myself. In the process, I met all kinds of people whose stories and pain made me deeply sympathetic. I did my best to help them, and at the same time, I gradually found my own value in the process. Whenever I see their grateful smiles because of my help, the guilt and self-blame in my heart will be slightly alleviated. I began to understand that redemption does not happen overnight. It takes time, patience, and even more sincere repentance and action. In the process, I have also gradually learned how to face my past. I know that I cannot change what has happened, but I can change my attitude towards it. I began to accept my past, the mistakes I had made, and try to make amends. I also began to re-examine my relationship with Emily. I realized that I needed more time with her, more communication and understanding. I began to try to understand her thoughts and feelings, to listen to her, and to accompany her in her growth. I hope, through my efforts, I can rebuild our relationship and let her feel the warmth and strength of a father's love. At the same time, I did not forget to seek professional psychological help. I knew that I needed the guidance and support of professionals to help me better face my heart and my past. In the process of counseling, I gradually learned how to deal with my emotions and stress and how to better face the challenges of life. Time passed slowly, and I gradually found inner peace. I began to understand that redemption is not an easy thing. It takes time, effort, and perseverance. But I also believe that as long as I sincerely repent and make amends for my mistakes and strive to become a better person, I will be able to find my own path to redemption. Now, when I look back on that dark time in my past, I no longer feel fear and avoidance. I know that it was a part of my life and a necessary part of my growth. I also begin to cherish my life and the people around me now, especially Emily, who is the sunshine and hope in my life, and my motivation and courage to move forward. I will continue to work hard to find redemption and forgiveness, not just for myself, but for Emily and those I have helped. I hope that through my experiences and actions I can influence and change more people so that they too can find their own path to redemption. In this process, I have gradually found my own value and meaning. I began to understand that the true meaning of life does not lie in the pursuit of material wealth and status, but in the inner peace and satisfaction. I also began to learn to cherish every moment and the people around me, to treat the world with love and kindness. In conclusion, I would like to say that redemption is not an easy thing, but it is a necessary path for our growth and progress. Only through sincere repentance and action can we find our own path to redemption. Can we truly let go of the baggage of the past and bravely face the challenges and hopes of the future. In the silence of the late night, I often think back to those days in the past, those moments when I had made mistakes. Whenever this happens, I say a silent prayer that those I have hurt will forgive me and that I will be redeemed in my heart. I am no longer running away, no longer in denial. I am willing to take on my past, to take on all that pain and remorse, because I know that only in this way can I truly move into the future and truly embrace my new life. In the process, I learned to cherish my present life more, to understand and tolerate others, and to resolve hatred and conflicts with love. I have also begun to use my actions to influence and change the people around me, so that they can feel the power of love and warmth. I know that I still have a long road to redemption, but I will keep going until I find inner peace and forgiveness. I also believe that in the process, I will become stronger and more mature, and will become a better person, a father more worthy of Emily's respect and love. Thank you for taking the time to listen to today's story. If you enjoyed it, please like and subscribe if you haven't already. If you have a story to share about your own or someone else's experience, please feel free to contact me. Take care.